One of the most common questions I get asked is, I've just bought a four-wheel drive and I'm looking to do an all-important four-wheel drive trip. What's the first thing I should do to my vehicle to increase the performance? And the answer is always the same: suspension. The suspension that's on factory vehicles was just never made to do the crazy things that we're asking for here in this country. From towing boats, to towing caravans, to climbing the highest mountains, to touring the country, the suspension that comes factory with a vehicle isn't made to do that job. So, by changing out the suspension doesn't mean the car's got to ride like a truck. In fact, we can actually improve the factory ride of the car 30% better than what it came out with, and increase its off-road capabilities by near on 100%. And the advancements on suspension that's available is just unbelievable. If you can have a look at the board here behind me, here's a selection of some high-quality suspension that we fit out to vehicles here at Ultimate Four-Wheel Drive. Now, we can fit you out from anything that you may be doing, from touring the country, to competing, to climbing the highest mountain, to just running down to the local caravan park. We can get the suspension to do all of the work for you and make sure the car rides perfectly. So why do you need to change the factory suspension out? Well, there's a number of reasons why you need to do that. More so, the factory suspension just doesn't have the load carrying capacity. Now, the last thing you want is the back of the vehicle to be sagging down. When that happens, you're at risk of taking all the weight off the front of the vehicle. Now, 70% of the vehicle's braking's done over the front end, and of course all of the steering's done at the front end. And you see a lot of cars when they're heading away on trips, where they're towing a caravan or a boat, or they're just loaded right up and the back of the car is actually sitting down. Well, that's a recipe for disaster. It's all good around town, especially when you're doing low speed, but you get yourself up to high speed on a country road and you need to take evasive action, well, that's when the trouble starts, because the geometry of the vehicle is all over the place, and that's where the car can lose control and actually roll over. And now there's around about 180 rollovers with four-wheel drive vehicles every year around the country. Now, most of them are due to overloading the vehicle or towing something that's incorrect for the car. And most of the time, if the suspension system was upgraded correctly, this probably wouldn't have happened. So, putting a good quality suspension on will allow the back of the vehicle to sit up and the car to sit nice and level, distributing the weight over the vehicle, ensuring the vehicle brakes and drives properly. Now, there's a lot of other reasons where you put suspension too. With the car being loaded up, especially if you're on corrugation or rough road, well, the suspension cops a real pounding, and the factory gear overheats and doesn't have the capacity to deal with corrugation and really heavy and harsh environment. So you can see here behind me, here's an example of a high quality suspension system, and you can see here this is a remote canister shock absorber, which allows more oil to actually be in the capacity of the shock, and it resists overheating. In fact, you can travel on corrugation at high speed for hours on end and the shock absorber will still be cool to touch. Now, with a factory style shocky, they've been known to get that hot after about 10 minutes that the paint actually peels off the shock absorber. So they don't have the capacity to do it. So there's a number of reasons why you would upgrade the suspension. Good quality ride, making sure you're going to be able to handle the load better, making sure the car actually performs and drives and handles really well, and overall just making sure you've got a nice safe trip and you're going to get back in one piece.